Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Ship Horizon and watched the alien fleets gather around his small human squadron. 12 different species had sent their warships to this empty patch of space near the Centauri system. The massive vessels dwarfed his own ships like whales surrounding minnows. Each alien craft carried enough firepower to turn a planet into dust. Jake had been expecting this moment for months. The signs had been building across the galaxy. Human trade ships were being turned away from alien ports. Diplomatic messages were becoming colder and more formal. Even their few alien friends had started avoiding contact with human representatives. His communications officer turned toward him with a worried expression. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the lead Zephyrian vessel. They're demanding we follow them to Nexus Prime immediately." Jake nodded slowly. Nexus Prime was the neutral space station where the Galactic Council held their meetings. It was a massive structure built from materials that no single species could have created alone. The station had existed for over 1,000,000 years and served as the center of galactic politics. Every major decision that affected multiple species was made there. "Set course for Nexus Prime," Jake ordered. He knew they had no choice. The alien fleets would escort them whether they agreed or not. The only question was whether they would arrive as guests or prisoners. The journey took 3 days. During that time, Jake received constant updates from Earth about similar encounters happening throughout human space. Every human military vessel was being rounded up and directed toward various meeting points. Civilian ships were being forced to dock at alien stations. It was clear that something big was about to happen. When they arrived at Nexus Prime, Jake was amazed by the size of the gathered fleet. Hundreds of alien warships from every major species in the galaxy had assembled around the ancient station. He had never seen so many different types of vessels in one place. The sight would have been beautiful if it wasn't so threatening. Ambassador Lisa Carter was already waiting at the station when Jake's ship docked. She had been Earth's primary representative to the Galactic Council for over 10 years. Lisa was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had dedicated her life to building relationships between humans and the various alien species. "Jake, I'm glad you made it safely," Lisa said as she met him at the docking bay. "But I have to tell you, this doesn't look good." The council chambers are packed with representatives from every major power in the galaxy. They've been meeting in private sessions for weeks. Jake followed Lisa through the winding corridors of the station. The architecture was unlike anything humans built. Curved walls flowed into each other without sharp corners. The lighting seemed to come from the walls themselves, creating a soft glow that was easy on the eyes. Despite its alien design, the station felt strangely peaceful. They passed groups of alien beings walking through the corridors. Jake recognized most of the species from his years of military service. The tall, insectoid Zephyrians moved with quick, jerky motions. Their compound eyes tracked everything around them constantly. The crystalline Vortaki seemed to float rather than walk, their translucent bodies catching and reflecting the station's light. The aquatic representatives from the Federation wore environmental suits filled with their native water. The council chamber was enormous. Circular seating rose up in tiers around a central speaking area. Representatives from dozens of species filled most of the seats. Jake had never seen so many aliens gathered in one place. The diversity was incredible, but the mood was clearly hostile. Lisa led Jake to the small section reserved for human representatives. Only a handful of humans were present, vastly outnumbered by the alien delegates. As they took their seats, Jake noticed how the aliens watched every human movement with suspicious eyes. The session began when High Counselor Zephyron of the Zephyrians rose to address the assembly. The insectoid being was over 8 feet tall, with 4 arms and wings that buzzed softly when folded against its back. Its voice carried clearly through the chamber's translation system. "Fellow beings of the galaxy," Zethron began, "we have gathered today to address a growing threat to the stability and peace that has existed for millennia. The species known as humans has exceeded all acceptable parameters of expansion and development." Jake felt his stomach tighten. He had hoped this meeting would be about trade agreements or border disputes. Instead, it sounded like humanity itself was on trial. Zethron continued, "In the 3 centuries since first contact, humans have displayed dangerous tendencies that threaten the established order. They have colonized systems at rates that violate all accepted protocols. They have developed technologies that should have taken them thousands of years to discover. Most concerning, they have consistently refused to accept their proper place in the galactic hierarchy." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the alien representatives. Jake could see heads nodding and appendages moving in species-specific gestures of approval. The Zephyrian counselor activated a holographic display that showed human space in 3 dimensions. Red dots marked human colonies, while blue lines showed expansion patterns over the past century. The growth was indeed impressive, but Jake failed to see why it was threatening. "Observe their expansion rate." Zethron pointed at the display. "In 100 years, they have established more colonies than most species create in 10,000 years. They have ignored traditional boundaries and settled in systems that were considered uninhabitable. Their population growth exceeds all sustainable models." A representative from the ethereal collective rose to speak. The being appeared to be made of flowing energy contained within a roughly humanoid shape. When it spoke, the words seemed to come from everywhere at once. "The humans have also demonstrated an alarming tendency toward innovation," the ethereal said. "They solve problems in ways that no other species would consider. They create new technologies instead of improving existing ones. This unpredictability makes them dangerous to galactic stability." Jake wanted to object that innovation was supposed to be a good thing, but Lisa placed a restraining hand on his arm. She knew better than to interrupt the formal proceedings. The presentation continued for hours. Species after species rose to list their concerns about humanity. The Aquatic Federation complained that humans polluted space with their primitive fusion drives. The Vortaki Empire worried that human mining operations disrupted delicate crystalline formations. Even minor species that Jake had barely heard of seemed to have grievances against human activities. Finally, Zethron called for the presentation of the Council's unanimous decision. The chamber fell silent as the High Counselor spread all 4 arms wide in a gesture of finality. "The Galactic Council hereby demands that the human species submit to immediate oversight and regulation. All human military vessels must be surrendered to Council authority. Human colonies must relocate to designated reservation worlds where they can be properly supervised. All human technological development must be approved by Council scientists." Before implementation, the words hit Jake like physical blows. They weren't just talking about restrictions or regulations. They were demanding complete subjugation. Zethron wasn't finished. In exchange for compliance, humans will be granted protected species status. They will be allowed to exist under Council guidance and supervision. This offer is generous considering the alternative. The threat was clear. Submit or be destroyed. Carter stood slowly and walked to the central speaking area. Every eye in the chamber focused on the small, human woman as she faced the assembled representatives of galactic civilization. "The human species will need time to consider this proposal," she said calmly. "We request 72 hours to consult with our government." Zethron's compound eyes glittered with what might have been amusement. "Very well. You have 3 of your days to accept reality. Choose wisely, Ambassador Carter. This offer will not be repeated." As the session ended and aliens began filing out of the chamber, Jake realized that everything had changed. Humanity was no longer welcome in the galaxy as an equal partner. They were being offered only two choices: slavery or extinction. But as he watched Lisa's calm expression, Jake suspected that his species might surprise the galaxy with a third option that no one had considered. Admiral Kevin Hall walked into the emergency session of United Earth Command with a folder that would change the course of human history. The massive underground facility beneath Geneva buzzed with activity as military leaders, scientists, and politicians gathered to decide humanity's response to the alien ultimatum. 3 days had passed since Ambassador Lisa Carter received the Galactic Council's demands, and time was running out. The command center's main screen displayed a map of human space with all known alien fleet positions marked in red. The sight was sobering. Every major jump point, trade route, and strategic system was surrounded by hostile vessels. The aliens had positioned their forces perfectly to cut off any escape routes and prevent human reinforcements from linking up. President Claire Adams sat at the head of the conference table, her face showing the strain of 3 sleepless nights. Around her, the most powerful humans in the galaxy argued about their impossible situation. Some wanted to negotiate for better terms. Others pushed for a military response despite the overwhelming odds. A few suggested partial compliance to buy time. Admiral Hall waited for a break in the discussion before standing up. The room gradually fell silent as the veteran officer prepared to speak. Hall had commanded Earth's defense forces for over 15 years and had earned respect through his careful judgment and strategic thinking. "Ladies and gentlemen," Hall began, "I believe we're approaching this problem from the wrong direction. We're debating how to respond to the aliens' terms, but we should be questioning whether we need to respond on their terms at all." Defense Minister Ryan Burke frowned at the Admiral. "What do you mean, Kevin? They've made their demands clear. We either submit or fight. There's no middle ground." Hall opened his folder and pulled out a thick document. "Actually, there is. Third option: complete withdrawal from galactic civilization." The room erupted in surprised voices. Several people spoke at once, asking questions and raising objections. President Adams raised her hand for silence and gestured for Hall to continue. "The idea came from our strategic planning department," Hall explained. "Instead of submitting to alien control or fighting a war we cannot win, we simply leave. We withdraw all human presence from alien space and cut all ties with galactic civilization." Senator Patricia Morgan looked skeptical. "That sounds like surrender with extra steps, Admiral. How is isolation any better than accepting their protection?" Hall activated the room's holographic display and showed a detailed analysis of human capabilities. "Because isolation means independence, not subjugation. We've been studying this possibility for months, ever since we detected the first signs of alien hostility." Dr. Susan Blake, head of the Terra Institute, stood up to support the Admiral's presentation. She was a small woman with graying hair, but possessed one of the sharpest minds in human space. Her research into alien technologies had made her an expert on galactic civilization. "The Admiral is correct," Dr. Blake said. "We've been conducting secret assessments of human self-sufficiency for the past year. The results are encouraging. Human colonies can survive independently of galactic trade networks. Our industrial capacity exceeds what the aliens calculated in their intelligence reports." She activated another display showing human technological development over the past century. "More importantly, we've made breakthrough discoveries that the aliens don't know about. Our research into quantum manufacturing, fusion technology, and biological systems has reached levels that would surprise our former trading partners." Trade Representative Ben Cross raised his hand. "But what about the resources we import from alien worlds? The rare minerals, the exotic compounds, The medical supplies? We can't just replace decades of interstellar commerce overnight. Dr. Blake smiled confidently. Actually, we can. Human ingenuity has always focused on finding alternatives rather than depending on established systems. We've developed synthetic alternatives for most alien imports. The few materials we cannot replicate can be found in uninhabited systems beyond the galactic rim. Admiral Hall resumed control of the presentation. The withdrawal would be total and immediate. Every human vessel in alien space would return to Earth or designated rally points. All colonies would go dark to alien sensors. We would cease all communication with galactic civilization. President Adams leaned forward with interest. What about our alien allies? The Centaurians have been good friends to humanity for decades. Are we abandoning them too? The question touched on one of the most difficult aspects of the plan. Captain Lauren Fox, who had been serving as a liaison with friendly alien species, looked uncomfortable as she answered. Madam President, we've already begun reaching out to our allies informally. The response has been disappointing. Even the Centaurians are urging us to accept the Council's terms. They believe resistance is futile and that cooperation is our only chance for survival. Captain Fox activated a recording of her recent meeting with Centaurian Ambassador Valtar. The alien's translated voice filled the room with obvious concern. Humans must understand the futility of resistance, the recording played. The Galactic Council represents civilizations that have existed for millions of years. Their combined knowledge and power cannot be challenged by a species that has barely left its home system. Please, for the sake of your people, accept their generous offer of protection. The recording ended, leaving the room in uncomfortable silence. Even their closest allies saw humanity as children who needed adult supervision. Admiral Hall cleared his throat. The alien reaction actually supports our strategy. They view us as primitive and dependent on their civilization. They cannot imagine that we might simply walk away from everything they consider valuable. Dr. Blake nodded in agreement. Galactic civilization is built on the assumption that all species want to join their established order. The idea of voluntary isolation is literally incomprehensible to them. They've been part of interconnected systems for so long that they've forgotten how to exist independently. Intelligence Director Maria Santos spoke up from her position near the back of the room. Our monitoring stations have been tracking alien communications since the ultimatum was delivered. They're absolutely confident that we'll submit within the deadline. Their military positioning is designed to prevent escape, not to handle a species that simply disappears. President Adams studied the faces around the table. This is an enormous risk. If we're wrong about our ability to survive independently, we could be condemning humanity to a slow death by isolation instead of a quick one by conquest. Admiral Hall looked directly at the President. Madam President, the aliens have made one critical error in their calculations. They've studied human psychology through the lens of their own experiences. They assume we think like every other species they've conquered. He paused for emphasis before continuing. But humans have always been different. When faced with impossible odds, we don't just choose between submission and destruction. We find a third way that no one else considered possible. Dr. Blake added, our entire history is filled with examples of humans choosing independence over security. We've walked away from comfortable situations when the price was our freedom. This situation is no different. The debate continued for several more hours, but the momentum was clearly shifting toward Admiral Hall's proposal. The more they discussed the details, the more feasible withdrawal seemed. Human colonies were already more self-sufficient than most alien settlements. Human technology was advancing rapidly without galactic assistance. Most importantly, human psychology was perfectly suited for pioneering independence. As the session moved toward a formal vote, President Adams asked one final question. "Admiral, what happens if the aliens follow us? What if they decide that our withdrawal is itself a threat that needs to be eliminated?" Hall smiled grimly. "Then they'll discover something that galactic civilization has forgotten over millions of years of peace and stability. Humans are very good at defending things we care about, especially when our backs are against the wall." The vote was unanimous. Humanity would choose the path that no other species in galactic history had ever taken. They would walk away from an established civilization and forge their own destiny in the unknown reaches of space. As the meeting ended and orders were transmitted to human forces throughout the galaxy, a new chapter in human history began. Aliens expected submission or resistance, but they were about to witness something entirely unexpected. Humanity was going home, and they were taking their potential with them. Station Commander Alex Turner stood in the main control room of Research Complex Omega and watched his alien staff work with growing sadness. The massive facility orbited the gas giant Kepler 442b and employed over 15,000 beings from 30 different species. For 12 years, Alex had called this place home, and now he was shutting it down forever. The research complex was humanity's crown jewel in alien space. Its laboratories had produced breakthrough medical technologies that saved millions of lives across the galaxy. The quantum computing arrays had solved mathematical problems that had puzzled alien scientists for millennia. The agricultural division had developed food production methods that ended famines on dozen worlds. Dr. Elena Rodriguez approached Alex with a datapad containing the final evacuation schedules. She had been his deputy director for 8 years and knew the facility better than anyone. Her face showed the same mixture of sadness and determination that Alex felt. "The last of the critical research data has been transferred to the secure servers," Elena reported. "All human personnel will be evacuated within 6 hours. The alien staff members have been given full severance packages and transportation to their home worlds." Alex nodded while watching a group of Centaurian scientists carefully pack their personal belongings. These beings had worked alongside humans for years, forming friendships that transcended species barriers. Many had tears in their large, expressive eyes as they prepared to say goodbye forever. The intercom system crackled with an announcement in multiple languages. "All personnel, please report to your designated evacuation zones. Transport ships will begin docking procedures in 1 hour. This facility will cease operations at 1800 hour station time." The announcement hit Alex like a physical blow. He had helped design this complex from the ground up, watching it grow from a small research outpost into the galaxy's premier scientific facility. Now he was dismantling everything they had built because the galaxy had decided that humans were too dangerous to exist as equals. Chief Engineer Maria Santos walked up to join the conversation. She carried a tablet showing the systematic shutdown of the complex's major systems. Power grids were being taken offline, research equipment was being put into protective stasis, and the massive quantum arrays were being carefully powered down. "Alex, we're getting strange readings from the galactic communication networks," Maria reported. "Trading stations across 3 sectors are reporting equipment failures. The quantum relay systems that connect the major trade routes are experiencing synchronization problems." Alex frowned at the news. The quantum relay network was the backbone of galactic commerce, allowing instantaneous communication across vast distances. If those systems were failing, it would disrupt trade throughout the entire galaxy. What kind of failures? Alex asked. Maria consulted her tablet, mostly compatibility issues. It seems like the relay stations were using human-designed interface protocols without realizing it. When our technicians stopped providing maintenance updates, the older alien systems couldn't adapt to the quantum fluctuations. Dr. Rodriguez looked up from her own datapad with surprise. That's not the only problem. I'm seeing reports from medical facilities across the galaxy. The universal antibiotic treatments that Dr. Rachel Green developed are running out, and the alien pharmaceutical companies don't have the production knowledge to manufacture more. Alex felt a cold sensation in his stomach. He had known that human withdrawal would cause some disruption, but he hadn't anticipated how deeply integrated human innovations had become in galactic infrastructure. Over the decades, human solutions had quietly replaced older alien technologies because they were more efficient and reliable. Captain Jerry Sullivan's voice came through the communication system from his cargo ship Enterprise. Jerry was coordinating the evacuation of human civilians from alien worlds, and his reports painted a picture of growing chaos throughout the galaxy. Alex, you need to see what's happening at the major trading hubs. Jerry's voice carried obvious concern. I just left Vortaki Prime, and their entire logistics network is falling apart. The shipping routes that human companies managed are being transferred back to alien control, but they're using systems that haven't been updated in centuries. The main view screen activated to show Jerry's ship approaching a massive alien trading station. The structure was clearly in distress, with multiple sections showing red warning lights and emergency beacons flashing. Ships were backed up in long queues waiting for docking clearance that should have been processed in minutes. The aliens built their current civilization on top of human improvements without realizing it, Jerry continued. When we developed better transportation algorithms, they adopted them. When we created more efficient power distribution systems, they integrated them into their infrastructure. Now that we're gone, they're discovering how dependent they became. Alex walked to the observation deck that overlooked the complex's main laboratory sections. Through the transparent aluminum windows, he could see alien scientists frantically trying to complete their research projects before the facility closed. Many of these beings had devoted their careers to work that would now be impossible to continue. Dr. Rodriguez joined him at the windows. I keep thinking about the ethereal collective's medical crisis. Their entire population depends on the neural stability treatments that Dr. Green's team developed. Without ongoing human research, their psychic abilities will start causing severe mental breakdowns within a year. The scope of the consequences was becoming clear. Human innovations hadn't just improved galactic civilization, they had become essential to its continued function. The aliens had grown so comfortable with human solutions that they had stopped maintaining their own alternative systems. Maria Santos approached with more troubling news. I'm receiving emergency communications from the Aquatic Federation. Their water purification systems are failing on 17 worlds. The biofilters that human engineers designed to handle their unique chemistry requirements can't be repaired without human technical support. Alex realized that the galaxy was experiencing something unprecedented in its long history. For millions of years, alien civilizations had developed slowly and carefully, building redundant systems and maintaining traditional methods alongside new innovations. But human technology had been so superior that they had abandoned their old ways completely. The evacuation proceeded on schedule, but the reports from around the galaxy grew more alarming by the hour. The Zephyrian hive mind was experiencing coordination problems because their communication networks relied on human-designed quantum processors. The Vortaki Empire's crystal matrices were degrading without the nanotechnology, maintenance that human engineers had provided for decades. As Alex boarded the last transport ship leaving Research Complex Omega, he looked back at the facility that had been his life's work. The massive structure would continue to orbit the gas giant, but its laboratories would remain dark and its corridors would stay empty. All the knowledge and innovation that had made it special was leaving with the human staff. Captain Sullivan's final report came through as their transport entered hyperspace. Alex, I've completed the civilian evacuation from the Centauri sector. The alien authorities are trying to maintain order, but panic is starting to spread. They're realizing that human withdrawal means more than just losing trade partners. The captain paused before continuing with obvious reluctance. They're starting to understand that they've lost their primary source of solutions to problems they didn't even know they had. For the first time in galactic history, technological progress is going to stop completely. Alex settled into his seat for the long journey back to human space. Around him, other evacuees shared similar stories of alien desperation and infrastructure failures. The galaxy that had demanded human submission was discovering the true cost of their ultimatum. What they had intended as a demonstration of power was becoming a lesson in dependence. The aliens had assumed they could force humanity to serve their civilization, but they were learning that humanity had become the engine that kept their civilization running. As the transport ship jumped toward the unknown regions where humanity would build its new future, Alex wondered if the aliens would realize their mistake before it was too late. The galaxy was about to discover what happened when the species responsible for progress simply walked away. Behind them, the first truly galactic recession in 1,000,000 years was just beginning. Admiral Sarah Mitchell sat in the command center of the hidden human base deep within the Kepler Nebula and studied the intercepted alien communications with growing amazement. 2 years had passed since humanity vanished from galactic civilization, and the reports flowing through alien networks painted a picture of catastrophe that exceeded even the most pessimistic human predictions. The base itself was a marvel of human engineering, built inside a hollowed-out asteroid and shielded from detection by the nebula's natural interference. Over 50,000 humans lived and worked in the facility, monitoring galactic events and preparing for whatever came next. The asteroid's surface bristled with sensors and communication arrays that tracked every major alien transmission in destination. The Galaxy. Lieutenant Commander Dana King approached Sarah's workstation with a stack of decoded messages from the Aquatic Federation. Dana had been one of Earth's top xenolinguists before the withdrawal, and now she spent her days translating increasingly desperate alien communications. "Admiral, you need to see the latest transmission from the Aquatic Federation Council," Dana said, her voice carrying obvious concern. "They're facing complete ecological collapse on their core worlds. The water purification systems that human engineers designed for their unique biology have been failing for months." Sarah took the translation and read through the technical details. The Aquatic Federation had built their entire civilization around water worlds with complex chemical compositions that required specialized filtration systems. Human bioengineers had solved the purification problems decades ago, but the aliens had never learned to maintain the technology themselves. "How bad is it?" Sarah asked. Dana consulted her notes. 17 worlds are already experiencing toxic algae blooms that are killing marine life. 3 more worlds have reported complete ecosystem crashes. The Federation is estimating that half their population will be dead within a year if they can't restore the purification systems. The scale of the crisis was staggering. The Aquatic Federation represented over 200 billion sentient beings spread across 47 star systems. They had been one of the galaxy's most stable civilizations for over 1,000,000 years. But human withdrawal was threatening their very existence. Communications. Specialist Steve Adams called out from his monitoring station across the room. "Admiral, I'm picking up an emergency session of the Galactic Council. High Counselor Zethron is addressing the Assembly about what they're calling the regression crisis." Sarah activated the main view screen to display the intercepted transmission. The familiar form of the Zephyrian leader appeared, but the insectoid being looked different than Sarah remembered. Its movements were more erratic, and its compound eyes seemed to dart nervously around the council chamber. "Fellow beings," Zethron began, its translated voice carrying obvious strain, "we face an unprecedented threat to galactic stability. The withdrawal of the human species has created cascading failures throughout our technological infrastructure. What we initially dismissed as temporary inconvenience has become an existential crisis. The camera panned across the council chamber, revealing a scene very different from the confident assembly that had demanded human submission 2 years earlier. Many seats were empty, and the alien representatives who were present looked tired and desperate. Several species showed obvious signs of malnutrition or technological degradation, not Dr. Peter Nash. The base's chief analyst joined Sarah and Dana to watch the transmission. Peter had spent decades studying galactic civilization and had predicted many of the current problems, but even he seemed surprised by the severity of the collapse. The Zephyrian hive mind is particularly interesting, Peter observed. Their entire social structure depends on quantum communication networks that coordinate billions of individual minds. When human-designed processors started failing, they began experiencing what they call coordination cascade failures. On the screen, a representative from the crystalline Vortaki Empire rose to address the council. The being's normally clear crystal body appeared clouded and dim, showing obvious signs of the degradation that was affecting their entire species. The situation grows worse each day, the Vortaki representative stated. Our crystal matrices require precise nanotechnology maintenance that only human engineers understood. Without this care, our bodies are slowly reverting to inert mineral states. We estimate that 90% of our population will be dead within 5 years. Sarah felt a chill at the stark announcement. The Vortaki Empire had been one of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. Their crystal-based biology, allowing them to interface directly with computer systems and energy networks. The idea that they were facing extinction because of missing maintenance technology was almost incomprehensible. Intelligence. Officer Helen Carter approached with another batch of intercepted messages, these from the Outer Rim territories where some of the galaxy's smaller civilizations struggled to survive. Helen had been monitoring the collapse of galactic trade networks and documenting the economic chaos spreading through dozens of star systems. Admiral, the economic data is even worse than the technological reports, Helen said. Galactic trade volume has dropped by 70% in the past year. The efficient shipping networks that human logistics companies created have been replaced by traditional alien systems that take 10 times longer to move goods between systems. She activated a holographic display showing trade route efficiency. Over time, the chart showed steady improvement for decades as human innovations streamlined galactic commerce, followed by a catastrophic drop beginning exactly when humanity withdrew. The aliens built their modern economy around human efficiency improvements, Helen continued. When those improvements disappeared, they discovered that their traditional methods couldn't handle the volume of trade that modern galactic civilization requires. Communications specialist Adams called out another urgent report. Admiral, I'm detecting a priority transmission from the Ethereal Collective to the Galactic Council. They're reporting what they call a consciousness degradation crisis, affecting their entire species. The Ethereal Collective had always been one of the galaxy's most mysterious civilizations, beings of pure psychic energy who existed in a shared consciousness network. Their participation in galactic affairs had been limited, but their advanced mental abilities made them valuable advisors and researchers. Sarah authorized the display of the ethereal transmission. The being that appeared on screen was barely recognizable as one of the energy entities she remembered. Instead of the usual flowing, coherent form, this ethereal appeared fragmented and unstable, its energy patterns flickering randomly. The human species provided neural stability treatments that allowed our consciousness network to function at optimal levels. The ethereal explained, its mental voice carrying obvious pain. Without ongoing human research into psychic medicine, our shared awareness is fragmenting. Individual ethereals are becoming isolated from the collective, and many are experiencing complete mental breakdown. Dr. Nash leaned forward with professional interest. The Ethereals had been working with human neuroscientists for decades to understand the interaction between psychic abilities and brain chemistry. The treatments they developed prevented the mental overload that high-level psychic abilities can cause. The implications were sobering. Every major alien civilization was facing unprecedented crises because of human withdrawal. Technologies that had seemed like simple improvements were revealed to be essential foundations supporting their entire way of life. Admiral Mitchell stood up and addressed her staff. Continue monitoring all galactic communications and prepare detailed reports on the situation in each major star system. It's clear that the aliens are beginning to understand the magnitude of their mistake. As the day shift ended and the night crew took over monitoring duties, Sarah remained at her station, reviewing the accumulated reports. The galaxy that had once demanded human submission was discovering that they had unknowingly become dependent on human innovation for their very survival. The most disturbing aspect was the evidence that galactic civilization had stopped progressing entirely without human input. For millions of years, alien species had developed slowly but steadily, building on accumulated knowledge and gradually improving their technologies. But human thinking had been so revolutionary that it had become the primary driver of advancement. Without humans to solve new problems and create innovative solutions, the galaxy was not just stagnating, but actively declining. Ancient problems that humans had solved were returning, and new challenges arose without anyone capable of addressing them creatively. As Sarah finally prepared to leave the command center, she wondered how long it would take the aliens to swallow their pride and ask for help. The galaxy was learning a hard lesson about the difference between controlling someone and earning their cooperation. The species they had tried to subjugate was the same species they now desperately needed to save them from the consequences of their own arrogance. General Chris Morgan stood on the bridge of the battleship Constitution and watched in horror as the mechanical swarm devoured another star system. 5 years had passed since humanity withdrew from galactic civilization, and now an ancient enemy had returned to threaten all organic life in the galaxy. The Devourers had awakened from their million-year sleep, and their machine intelligence was systematically consuming every world in their path. The massive ship hung in space at the edge of the Rigel system, hidden behind the electromagnetic interference of a dying star. Through the Constitution's advanced sensors, Chris could see the mechanical horrors at work. Swarms of metal creatures the size of asteroids stripped entire planets down to their cores, converting organic matter and minerals into more machines. What had once been a thriving system with billions of inhabitants was now nothing but empty space and metallic debris. Communications. Officer Tony Rivera approached Chris with a message that had been transmitted across multiple frequencies in every known galactic language. The desperate plea had taken 3 days to reach human space through conventional communication methods, since the quantum relay networks had collapsed years earlier. General, this is the formal message from the Galactic Council, Tony said, his voice carrying the weight of historic significance. High Counselor Zethron has personally signed a complete apology for their previous demands and formally requests human assistance against the Devourer threat. Chris took the translated document and read through the unprecedented admission of error. The proud alien civilizations that had once demanded human submission were now acknowledging their complete dependence on human innovation and tactical thinking. The message included detailed reports of their failed attempts to fight the Devourers using traditional galactic military doctrine. Captain Helen Carter entered the bridge carrying intelligence reports from human reconnaissance ships that had been monitoring the conflict from a safe distance. Helen commanded the stealth vessel Observer, which had been tracking Devourer movements throughout the Outer Rim territories for months. General, The alien fleets are being systematically destroyed, Helen reported grimly. Every tactic they've tried has failed completely. The Devourers have evolved during their long sleep, but alien thinking has remained exactly the same as it was 1,000,000 years ago, when they barely managed to drive the machines into hibernation. She activated the bridge's holographic display to show recordings of recent battles. Massive alien fleets engaged the Devourer swarms using formations and strategies that were ancient beyond human comprehension. The results were consistently devastating for the organic forces. The aliens fight like they've always fought, Helen continued. They use overwhelming numbers, concentrated firepower, and defensive formations that worked against other organic enemies. But the Devourers adapt to every conventional strategy within hours. Chris studied the tactical displays with professional interest. The Devourer machines showed clear signs of learning and evolution, analyzing alien tactics and developing countermeasures. Faster than organic minds could adapt. What should have been epic battles were turning into systematic extermi, NATI. Owens, Dr. Lisa Blake, arrived on the bridge carrying the latest reports from human scientific analysis of Devourer technology. Lisa had been studying the mechanical threat since the first reports reached human space, and her findings were both fascinating and terrifying. The Devourers represent a completely different approach to warfare, Lisa explained. They don't just fight to win battles. They fight to learn. Every engagement teaches them more about their enemy's capabilities and limitations. The aliens are essentially training their own destroyers with every failed attack. The scope of the crisis was almost incomprehensible. In the 5 years since humanity withdrew, galactic civilization had regressed to the point where they could barely maintain basic infrastructure. Now they faced an enemy that had spent 1,000,000 years dormant, evolving and improving, while their own military capabilities had actually declined. Intelligence specialist Ryan Walsh joined the discussion. With decoded alien communications that revealed the true desperation of the galactic situation. Ryan had been monitoring Devourer expansion patterns and alien response strategies, documenting the steady collapse of organized resistance. General, the Zephyrian hive mind has lost coordination of over half their fleet, Ryan reported. Without human-designed quantum processors, they can't maintain the complex communications needed for large-scale military operations. Their ships are fighting as individual units instead of coordinated swarms. The irony was devastating. The aliens had demanded human submission because they feared human military potential, but their own military effectiveness had depended on human innovations more than they realized. Now they faced annihilation because they had driven away the species capable of tactical innovation. President Claire Adams appeared on the bridge's main communication screen, transmitted from Earth's secure command bunker. The president looked older than Chris remembered, bearing the weight of deciding humanity's response to the galaxy's desperate plea for help. General Morgan, the Earth Assembly has reached a decision regarding the Galactic Council's request, President Adams announced. We will provide military assistance against the Devourer threat, but not as subjects of alien authority. Chris nodded with satisfaction. He had hoped humanity would choose to help, but only on their own terms. The species they had once demanded. Human subjugation would now have to accept human leadership if they wanted to survive. The aliens will fight under human tactical command, the president continued. Ambassador Tony Rivera will deliver our terms to the Galactic Council. Complete operational authority over all military assets. Access to all alien intelligence regarding Devourer capabilities, and formal recognition of human territorial sovereignty. The terms were fair, but firm. Humanity would save the galaxy, but only as equals and leaders, not as servants. The aliens who had feared human potential would now depend on it for their very existence. Admiral Kevin Hall's image appeared alongside the president's. transmitted from the command ship Enterprise, where he was coordinating the mobilization of human forces. The veteran officer looked confident despite the magnitude of the challenge they faced. "Chris, we're bringing everything we've developed during the 5 years of isolation," Admiral Hall reported. "The new weapon systems, the adaptive AI tactical networks, the quantum disruption technology that the aliens never knew we were developing." Chris felt a surge of excitement at the mention of humanity's secret innovations. The years of isolation had not been wasted. Human scientists and engineers had continued advancing, developing technologies specifically designed to fight unconventional enemies. The Devourers would face tactics and weapons that no galactic civilization had ever conceived. The Constitution's engines came online as the massive ship prepared to leave its hiding place and rejoin galactic civilization. Around the battleship, other human vessels emerged from the hidden bases and secret colonies, where they had spent 5 years preparing for this moment. As the human fleet formed up for the journey toward the galactic core, Chris realized that everything had changed since the aliens' original ultimatum. Humanity was no longer the junior species seeking acceptance in galactic civilization. They were the cavalry arriving to save civilizations that had proven incapable of saving themselves. Final communication from Admiral Hall summed up humanity's transformation perfectly. "General, the galaxy that once demanded our submission is about to discover what happens when humans fight for something we choose to protect rather than something we're forced to serve. The war for galactic survival was beginning, and for the first time in the conflict, the organic species would fight under the command of minds capable of thinking beyond ancient patterns. The Devourers had evolved during their long sleep, but they were about to encounter something they had never faced before: human tactical innovation, unleashed not in service to alien masters, but in defense of the freedom that humanity had claimed. By walking away, the galaxy trembled not with fear of humanity, but with hope that human ingenuity could achieve what 1,000,000 years of alien warfare had failed to accomplish. The species that had chosen independence over security was returning to save the galaxy that had tried to chain them.